Welcome back. We are jumping straight into the thick of it today, zeroing in on a major player in Latin American agribusiness, BrasilAgro.
We've gone through their 2023 annual and ESG reports.
And our goal is pretty simple. We want to give you the strategic playbook. How did this company navigate what was, just an incredibly tough year?
Oh, it was brutal. Absolutely. The harvest year we're looking at, so it's July 2022 to June 2023, it was defined by this classic pincer movement.
Right.
You had soaring inflation driving up all your input costs, think fertilizers, seeds, everything. And then at the exact same time, commodity prices started to soften.
So the question isn't just, did they survive? It's more like, how on earth do they actually make money?
Oh, that's the thing. And it gets to the core of their model. BrasilAgro is not just a farming company.
That distinction is everything. For anyone who isn't familiar, their whole business is engineered to avoid being totally at the mercy of a bad harvest or falling soy prices.
Exactly. It's a dual business model. Think of it like two engines running at the same time. The first one is pure real estate. Okay.
They buy these massive pieces of underdeveloped land.
Yeah.
They spend years and a lot of money putting in infrastructure, fixing the soil, bringing in tech,
Basically maximizing its value.
and then they sell it for a capital gain,
Precisely. They are land developers first and foremost. The farming is almost secondary.
which is the second engine, the operational side, the actual farming.
Right. That's the income from corn, soybean, cotton, sugarcane, plus some livestock. They operate in Brazil, Paraguay, and Bolivia. But you can think of the farming as a sort of high-tech tenant that's just making the land more valuable for that eventual sale.
Okay, so that dual model really explains the tension we see in the financials for this year, right?
It explains everything. So with that global squeeze, their net revenue dropped 9% year over year. It landed at $1.3 billion. That's Brazilian reais.
9% is a decent drop.
It is. And their adjusted EBITDA, which is, a good measure of their core profitability, it was still strong at our $533.7 million. But the margins were way tighter than the previous record-breaking year.
So on paper, a tough operational year. Less revenue, higher costs.
Yeah.
But then you see this one number that just jumps off the page.
The dividends.
The dividend. They proposed distributing our $320 million. How do you do that when your operations are taking a hit?
And that is where the genius of the real estate model just shines. When the agricultural side gets squeezed, like it did this year, the real estate segment, it steps in.
It saves the day.
It's the financial engine. That dividend payout is a direct result of the capital appreciation on their land portfolio. It just beautifully insulates them from that pure commodity risk.
It means they don't have to be perfect farmers every single year to be a successful investment.
Yeah, at all.
Okay, so the money story makes sense. But let's get off the corporate ledger and onto the ground. What were the biggest, day-to-day headaches they were dealing with?
The first one, and this is probably the most alarming trend in modern agriculture, was just climate variability.
Weather.
Yeah, the extremes are getting more extreme. For BrasilAgro, they had events like an extended Indian summer that just hammered their expected productivity in key areas.
And the numbers are pretty jarring when you look at them. Overall, grain and cotton production finished 9% below what they forecast.
But if you drill down into a specific region like Bahia, it's even worse. Soybean productivity there plunged by 23%. Cotton was down 14%.
Wow.
And even their livestock was hit by the drought conditions there. It's a systemic risk you can't just budget for.
So how do you respond to that?
Well, their response was strategic, not just reactive. They doubled down on portfolio diversification, so don't put all your eggs in one regional basket. And they poured a lot of capital into high-tech irrigation and soil conservation, trying to create some stability when the weather is anything but.
Okay, what was the second big challenge?
It's that same cost inflation versus price squeeze we saw in the financials. Input costs were already rising.
Fuel, fertilizer.
Everything. And then the depreciation of the local currency, the real, just made all those imported inputs even more expensive. It just compressed their operational margins like crazy.
And the answer to that was technology.
Basically, yeah. They called it intensified digitalization. But this wasn't just, buying some new software. It was about implementing new management systems and production tech to optimize literally every single resource.
So trying to get more from every drop of water, every gram of fertilizer.
That's it. It's about structural efficiency when you can't control the market prices.
And the third one sounds potentially catastrophic. Wildfire management.
A huge risk. It's an inherent threat in the Cerrado biome where they operate. It's a danger to their assets and a massive environmental liability.
And it sounds like this year was particularly bad.
It was a difficult year. They have a really rigorous prevention program. I mean, over 100 trained firefighters on staff. But even with that, the total burned area on their properties increased by 56% compared to the year before.
56%. That's a massive jump. It tells you the old system, whatever it was, wasn't keeping up.
It wasn't fast enough, so they made a technological pivot. They moved away from just reactive fire response to proactive monitoring.
What does that look like?
They developed a new fire prevention platform. It integrates satellite imagery and monitoring servers, continuously scanning. It lets them detect a hotspot on any given farm in near real time.
So it radically increases their response speed.
It changes the entire game. You're going from a response time of maybe hours to potentially just minutes. That's a huge operational shift.
That focus on tech is a perfect segue into the strategic wins, the key events that really define their year.
Right. And Key Event 1 is really the perfect example of their entire business model in action. They call it the real estate value cycle closes.
And this was about a specific farm.
Yes, the Aracaria farm in Goiás, a property they first acquired way back in 2007. This year, they sold the final remaining piece of it.
And that single sale, plus others, brought in a lot of cash.
A lot. They sold over 9,000 arable hectares, bringing in our $610 million in revenue from real estate sales alone.
So you put that our $610 million next to the our $320 million dividend.
And the story writes itself. The land development was the primary value driver for shareholders in a tough year. It's the strategy working exactly as designed.
Crystal clear. Okay, what was the second key event?
Key Event 2 really follows up on their response to that cost squeeze. It was a major connectivity investment right there in the field.
So internet on the farm.
Pretty much. They poured over our $1.5 million into deploying a 4G connectivity structure at their San Jose farm.
$1.5 million just for internal connectivity. That says a lot about the scale of modern agriculture. What did that actually do for them?
It gave them 4G coverage over 32,000 hectares. And what that really means is real-time data flow. No more managers relying on reports that are weeks old.
So they can make decisions instantly.
Exactly. More assertive decisions about applying inputs, which is critical when you're fighting those margin pressures.
It's moving from hindsight to real-time action. And the third event, this one feels like it's pointing to the future.
I think so. It's their investment in operational self-sufficiency and, crucially, biological inputs.
Tell me about that.
Well, they installed a new seed processing unit at one farm, but the really big deal was a new automated biofactory at another.
A biofactory, what is that?
It allows them to produce their own microbiological pesticides right on site. This is a core part of, precision and regenerative farming.
So they're not buying these chemicals from a third party anymore.
Right. It integrates environmental control right into their operations and, maybe more importantly, it reduces their dependency on expensive global chemical supply chains.
It's like vertical integration, but for sustainability.
That's a perfect way to put it. It turns a vulnerability into an operational strength.
Okay, let's shift to ESG, because for a company like this, it's becoming more and more material.
Yeah.
What stood out on the environmental, social, and governance fronts?
On the environmental, or E side, the big technical step was publishing their second greenhouse gas inventory. And the headline number was a huge reduction in Scope 1 emissions.
Huge,
Like over 681,000 tons of CO2 equivalent. A massive number.
But I saw a note in the report that this was mainly due to a methodological change. Can you break that down? Because it sounds a little complicated.
It's a great question because it gets a little weedy. Basically, the huge drop wasn't from a sudden change in their farming practices this year. It was more about them reclassifying how certain things, like adding lime to the soil, are counted in their overall emissions.
So they got a more accurate baseline.
Exactly. They've defined a better starting line, which is critical, but it also means that future reductions are going to be harder to achieve since they've already reset that baseline lower.
That makes sense. But the report also flagged a pretty massive environmental risk we shouldn't gloss over.
Oh yeah, water management. This is critical. The report states that 99.82% of their total water withdrawal happens in regions that are classified as having medium to high water stress.
Almost 100%.
Basically all of it, which means their entire operation is fundamentally linked to climate risk. They need incredibly strict licensing and really rational use protocols just to keep the business running.
Okay, switching to the S for social. What were they focused on?
It was a mix of internal and external. Internally, they launched a program called Mais Mujer to boost female leadership on the farms. They even elected a female godmother at each location to be a focal point.
That's a very grassroots approach.
It is, and it formalizes their commitment in what's a very male-dominated sector. Externally, their main social arm is the BrasilAgro Institute.
And what's their impact?
They reached over 20,000 people across 19 municipalities. They run programs like literacy classes for field workers, healthy eating projects. They're actually committing up to 2% of their net income to social actions every year, which is significant.
And finally, governance, the G. What was the key move there?
Formalizing oversight. The big one was the creation and election of a formal audit committee.
Which sounds a bit dry, but it's important, right?
It's more than just ticking a box. It strengthens all their internal controls, which is vital for a company listed on both the Brazilian Stock Exchange and the NYSE. They have to comply with things like Sarbanes-Oxley or SOX.
So this aligns them with the highest global standards.
Exactly.
So they're shoring up the foundations while battling fires. Literally. Let's look forward. Where are they putting their money and their focus for the next cycle?
Priority one is a massive follow-through on that biofactory idea. It's all about scaling biological agriculture.
So building more of them.
Way more. They're planning to construct 2 additional automated biofactories, which means a projected investment of $7.4 million in biological products alone.
Wow. And the goal is to expand the use of these, like, in-house pesticides.
To an extra 200,000 hectares, it's a critical bet. If they pull it off, they totally change their cost structure and their dependency on global chemical markets.
Okay, what's priority 2?
Total digital integration. This is the combination of all those individual tech projects. They want to finalize the integration of all their management software into one single unified platform.
So connecting the 4G-enabled fields directly to corporate headquarters in real time.
That's the dream. They're planning to finalize connectivity across about 53,000 hectares. It's all about using data to optimize those tight margins we talked about.
And priority 3 sounds like the next step for their ESG work.
It is strategic climate action. So they've done the measurement with the GHG inventory. Now the focus shifts from just counting emissions to actively designing reduction strategies.
And maybe even monetizing it.
That's the idea. They're investigating how to capitalize on the carbon that's already stored in their soil through regenerative farming. It's about turning their ESG reporting into a potential financial strategy.
This has been a really fascinating look at, well, a masterclass in resilience. You get to boil everything down, the challenges, the sales, the bets. What are the biggest takeaways for you?
Takeaway 1 is the absolute strength and resilience of that dual model. In a year where farming got hammered, the $610 million in real estate sales was the anchor. It just proves the model works as a hedge.
Yeah, that's clear.
Takeaway 2 is that for them, technology and sustainability aren't just, PR talking points.
They're core operational mandates.
Exactly. These are major capital expenditures, the 4G, the biofactories. They're aimed at managing risk and optimizing the business.
And the third takeaway?
It's their maturing corporate responsibility. The new audit committee solidifies their governance to global standards, and the work of the Institute shows a real, measurable social contribution. They're moving beyond just compliance.
Okay, so this leaves us with a really interesting puzzle to think about. BrasilAgro is betting millions, like that $7.4 million on biofactories, to stabilize their yields. But if 99.82% of their water comes from water-stressed regions, how long can that operational excellence really hold off a major regional climate event?
That's the billion-dollar question. And can regenerative agriculture really transform productivity enough to keep justifying that premium land development model, especially if agricultural margins stay tight globally? That one resource dependency, water, it feels like the most fragile point in what is otherwise an incredibly resilient strategy.
Something for you to mull over until our next deep dive.